I'm giving you way too many.
Yeah,
Look, listen. If this was my lineup, I'm not giving you any, not a single one. I don't know that based on what I've seen at the start of this season, Spurs have actually taken a step forward.
We belong here. We're going to play like this. It doesn't matter what you try to do.
How do you see it going?
I'm going to say 4-1 Spurs.
Flav.
No, what?
You are setting yourself up here. 4-1 Spurs.
Yeah, why not?
We got nothing to lose, just me and you. Lose control.
Hello everybody and welcome to Settle the Score, the North London Derby edition. I'm Harry Symeou. I'm of course an Arsenal supporter and I'm here with Spurs fan Flav Bateman to look ahead to what already feels like a huge North London derby for both sides, despite the fact, guys, that we're only 3 games into the season. Flav, how are you feeling about it? It's a big one.
I can't remember ever being invited on these things when Spurs were consistently finishing above Arsenal. It's only in recent years where the shift has happened somewhat that I have to talk about this fixture, which I've always hated. So you ask me how I'm feeling, I'm probably feeling the same as any Arsenal fan, where it's a game that needs to be endured. And if it goes our way, which I predict it will, fantastic. But if it doesn't, I've gone through enough to know that I know how to deal with it now. But I do feel confident about it. I feel like the recent injuries to your first 11 in terms of Rice and Odegaard will have a role to play. Perhaps not as significant as we think, but they're definitely, you're going to miss those guys. So yeah, I'm quietly confident, but ask me when we're about to kick off how I feel. It'd probably be slightly different.
See, with these derbies, I always look forward to the home game because it is a fixture that, if you look back over the last decade, has tended to go with the home side. Yeah. So I do enjoy the home game. I'd never enjoy the away game because, you feel like there's some real jeopardy there and there's a chance that you end up coming away empty-handed. And you and me have both kind of grown up in the North London area, so we know what it's like to live in and among each other. And how annoying it can be when your team loses the derby. I do think, though, Flav, just to dive straight into it, no messing around, I do feel like, from speaking to some Spurs fans over the last few days, the injuries that Arsenal have got, you mentioned Rice and Odegaard. Yeah. It's as if, because of that, some Spurs fans, in my view, are getting a little bit big for their boots ahead of this derby.
Look, I don't think that it's as significant as people think it will be. Arsenal have enough in their squad to move things around, and Arteta's system isn't necessarily reliant on Rice and Odegaard. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful that for our chances, given the fact that Rice is out through his silly mistake, which I think was fair and deserved.
Come on, Flat, come on! You think that was a deserved red card?
100%, it was a red card. Yeah, 100%. If it was a Spurs player, I would hold my hands up and go, "You were silly. You know what you were doing."
No, you would not.
You should be furious with him, Harry. You should be, because
why?
Because he knew what he was doing. He was trying to stop Brighton from playing out, and if you do that, it's a yellow card. It's the rule of the game. He's now suspended for what is one of the biggest games that you're going to play this season. For that, and there isn't an Arsenal fan out there going, yeah, shame on you. You shouldn't have done that, Declan Rice.
Well, let's say that you're right then. Let's say that he deserved to be sent off and, he deserves everything that's come his way in terms of the punishment, missing the game, etc., etc. I will be watching every game for the remainder of the season with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that sort of incident gets punished every single time, because that's my gripe with it.
Yeah, appreciate that, the inconsistency, but that's not the way football works. You've got to look at it in an isolated incident. There will be inconsistencies through the season. He shouldn't have done it. And there should be pressure from the Arsenal fan base to ensure that he knows what he's done, and he's put you in a disadvantaged position. But there was this, and I get it. Arteta has done a great job in creating this sort of very backs to the wall. It's Arsenal versus the rest, and you need to have that. I appreciate. And, it's frustrating to watch how effective Arteta has been in creating this unit that is Arsenal over the last couple of seasons. We spoke, Harry, about 4 years ago, where there's some naysayers. And I remember you talking about Arteta, and I was agreeing with you that you've got an excellent coach there. But that comes with it some form of... the blinkers are on. They're Arsenal blinkers. And you look at Declan Rice and what he did, and it's clear that you're not seeing the game the way that most fans see the game in this instance with Declan Rice. And I'm glad he's not playing because he is incredible.
He is incredible. Martin Odegaard's incredible as well. Arsenal are going to be without both of those players. Tottenham, though, it looks like they might get Mickey van der Ven back. I think he is going to play, actually. Tottenham being really quiet about that, though, by the looks of it.
Postecoglou said that he could have played against Newcastle, but they just didn't want to risk it, and he wanted to give Radu Jagerson an opportunity to play in the Premier League. So, yeah, it's massive. Well. It didn't go too badly, actually. This is the thing. This is why look, you're looking at Spurs, and if you don't watch Spurs play, appreciate it. But we've had 3 really good performances. The results haven't gone our way. Newcastle, we battered them. And that's why I'm confident going in. I think this Tottenham that we've got this year under Postecoglou is different from the one that we had last year. We feel like it's 3 games. The sample size is small, but I feel like we've moved on. Now, I'm fully appreciative of the fact that the North London derby doesn't allow a demonstration of where you are. It's generally chaos and goals come from all over the shop. And that game that you beat us last season, the 3-2 game, it could have gone... there could have been another 3 or 4 goals in that game as well. So this game is crazy. So you won't see where we are against Arsenal, but I'm guaranteeing you that Spurs are progressing as a football club on the pitch. And Van der Ven's a massive part of that.
Let's do a combined 11 because I think there's going to be some debate here. I don't think there should be much debate because one team is clearly miles ahead of the other. But I do think we need to go through
Harry,
this
how many Spurs players would get in your 11?
Well, if it were down to me, none of them. But I know that we can't do that. I know we have to have a debate.
Do you legitimately say that there isn't a Spurs player that will get in your first 11 this Sunday?
Well, this Sunday may be a little bit different because of the players that Arsenal have missing. But even still, is there one that I'm looking at and thinking he's the guy that I would love to have wearing red and white or black in this weekend's case? I just don't see it, Flav. I mean, let's go through the team then. So goalkeepers, Raya or Vicario, right? I think that's clear.
No,
is it not?
No, it's not clear. Statistically, as a shot stopper, Vicario is one of the best in the league. David Raya is a good goalkeeper. And, you know, the fact is that we could have signed Raya and we turned him down because of his attitude in that interview. Tells you everything about the man. And Vicario said that he would sign in his own blood and walk to Tottenham. So there you go. You've got a goalkeeper. I cannot come on talkSPORT. I cannot pick David Raya ahead of Vicario given what he's done for Spurs this season. I appreciate what you're going to say. He's a good keeper, Raya, but what sets him apart?
I think a lot of things. I think his distribution is incredible, which is ultimately why he was signed. I think as well, I know he made a mistake in the North London derby last season, which allowed Spurs back into the game when it seemed like it was done. But the way he came out and caught 6 or 7 crosses at really sort of key moments towards the end of that game showed what he brings, which is that calmness and that aerial dominance that maybe Aaron Ramsdale didn't have. I think that's where he kind of stands apart. I just think most clean sheets last season, I know it's not all down to him, it's down to the defensive unit as well. But for me, it's Raya. So I don't know if we're ever going to come to a general agreement on this.
You're not asking us to agree on a combined 11. That can't be. We'll never do that.
I wouldn't agree with you. A few days out from a derby, never.
I've got, just so you know,
go
on. I haven't got that many Arsenal in mine.
Which Arsenal have you got in yours?
I'll let you know as and when we come to it.
Right,
I don't want to preload it. Well, we're going Pedro Porro at right back, obviously, because Ben White. Well, look. I'm not going to say Ben White isn't a good player. He is, but the way Tottenham play. This is about how many Arsenal players will get into our team and our system. The way our fullbacks play, Ben White isn't that. So that's why I have to pick Pedro Porro. But Ben White, systematically, you wouldn't have Porro in the Arsenal team either.
No, but I would also not have him in the team because he can't defend well enough.
I think that's a bit of a kind of that stems from sort of comments that when he first joined, where he was playing in a Conte system as a wing back, and that he can't play as a fullback. But it's not true. He can defend.
All right, Romero or Saliba? Easy, isn't it?
It's not easy because you would be talking
Flav,
about.
It's easy.
No, it's not easy because you're suggesting that Romero isn't in the conversation, and he's clearly one of the best centre backs in the league. I, however, have put Saliba in the team. That's all you get.
Okay, fine, fine. I'll take it.
Gabriel. It's Van der Ven.
See, I wouldn't go with Van der Ven over Gabriel because I think the thing that people miss with Gabriel is they all look at him and they say, well, he's the most likely of Arsenal's defensive two to make a mistake or have a bit of a moment. And I agree with that generally. But I just think for 2 seasons now, he's been babysitting whoever plays left back at Arsenal as well, because he's always having to go out there because the fullback's constantly inverting. So I think for that reason, his value to Arsenal sometimes goes under the radar a little bit. And I don't always think that is fair, the way he's judged. I will reluctantly allow you to have Van der Ven in there because I've been really impressed with him.
Van der Ven in Arsenal's system would be perfect. You would have the best centre back in the league without question. There's an argument that pairing is the best anyway in terms of Saliba and Gabriel, but Van der Ven is special, and the fact that we seem to be able to pick him up without any much resistance anywhere. There was linked to Liverpool a season before, but yeah, for me, Van der Ven, I appreciate that, Harry.
You're welcome.
You haven't got a left back, really, have you? That's the thing. The next question is a difficult one.
This is a tough one. It is, because Arsenal don't really play, as you say, with a traditional left back. You know, it's probably going to be Timber at the weekend, but it could be Calafiori, it could be Zinchenko. And that's been a problem for Arsenal over the last year, I would say, the rotation in that position.
Isn't there issues with injuries of Timber and Calafiori?
So Timber's okay. Calafiori picked up a knock playing for Italy, but I'm sort of quietly confident that he'll at least be in the squad at the weekend. I'll give you Udogie based on the fact that he is a left back, and we're trying to build a combined 11. And unless we're going to get into the nuances of it, it won't work.
He's got a system. He's got a whole Premier League track record as well to back him up. So what? Hang on, where are we then? We agreed Vicario in goal, didn't we?
He's trying it. Look at him. Nice try. I don't know that we're ever going to get to a common 11.
Okay,
so let's just keep
Raya,
going.
Ben White, Saliba, Van der Ven, Udogie. Okay, in midfield.
Right. In midfield. And it's only based on players that are available. So this is where it becomes quite difficult. I still think that Thomas Partey is the best number 6 across the 2 teams.
What, over Basuma?
I think so, yeah.
It's very difficult for me to... I cannot, because I just cannot put Partey in my team. And Basuma has shown this season when he's played that he's returning to his best. So while I think it's Basuma, I think outside of Tottenham, people might say Partey, but I categorically think it's Basuma. I think Partey dips in and out. He's played well this season, I'll give you that. But he has lapses, and he has against Spurs in this fixture. We've seen him wilt a little bit, and do you remember there was this game when Arteta pushed him on when he was injured?
Yeah, when he went off the side of the pitch.
That's right. So that's kind of my memories of Partey, and that's what I kind of hold when I think about Partey. It's the fact that he's.
I will say that he's not as mobile as he was 2 years ago, and that is starting to become a problem. And I don't think he's a long-term player for Arsenal in there anymore. But for now, based on what's available, I'll stick him in. And get involved in the comments as well. Let us know, of course, if you agree or disagree with any of these.
How do you think I'm going to do in the comments?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do much better because I've given you half of the defence over the best defence in the Premier League.
Honestly,
anyway.
combined 11s are the bane of my life, right? I get more stick from doing these than any other. You should see my DMs after this. It's not going to be pretty.
What about the rest of the midfield then? I'll let you make the case for your players first, because I'm still trying to think about who's going to be available to play there.
Yeah, and that what Arsenal do in that midfield dictates who's going to be up front as well. Because if Havertz drops, then that's another question. But what I would say for Spurs, Kulusevski through the middle playing the 8/10 in our system has been sensational. He was really coming into his own towards the end of the season. And our midfield, what previously you'd think would have been Basuma, Bentancur and Maddison, it would be our best three. It's not. It involves Kulusevski now. So I'm going to say Kulusevski and Maddison both for Spurs to get in that team. Maddison and Odegaard are comparable on form. Odegaard has been the better player over the last year or so. So I wouldn't have been able to argue for him not to be in the first, in this 11. But given the fact that he isn't available, Maddison in that 10 has to be there. So the conversation, unless you have any objections, is about, is it, if Partey's playing in the 6, is it Jorginho in midfield? And would I rather have Jorginho or Kulusevski? I'm going to say Kulusevski.
Well, I think Mikel Arteta will have to tweak the system a little bit. I think he'll have to play with a double pivot. He'll put Jorginho in there alongside Partey rather than the role that Rice would play where he's got that license to get further forward. Look, and I'm not trying to be the arrogant Arsenal fan here, but if Rice and Odegaard were available, this would be no conversation for me. They'd both be in there. And I think you might not want to say it.
It's made it easier for me. It's made it easier for me. I'll give you that.
Yeah, fine. That's all I'm going to get out of you, so I'm not going to push any harder.
I mean, no, look, Rice is worth every penny you paid for him. He's unreal, and I hate it. And he's actually quite likable, weirdly, as well, which is a strange position to be in. But, I'm very grateful for the fact that Rice ain't playing, but he would definitely be in the team.
I think Havertz will drop into the midfield. So then I guess that the debate is, does Havertz, the midfielder, trump any of Kulusevski or Maddison? And I guess because I don't think he is a midfielder, and because I think it's been abundantly clear how much more useful he is when he plays at centre-forward, I'm going to concede there.
He's turned into one of the best centre-forwards in the league. It's like, when he was signed, it was like a bit of a joke. And Arteta has gone out on his limb a couple of times and gone, I'm going to make this signing because this makes us better, but people might not understand that. When he signed, I was like, that's a lot of money for someone. Wasn't there talk about him being an 8 or playing in midfield, and that didn't quite work, and you put him back in his position. Like, we potentially benefit from that as well. So you're saying Havertz, or you're saying Kulusevski trumps him? You don't want to say that, do you?
I don't want to say that, but
because
they're midfielders, and I don't think Havertz is, and I'd be being a hypocrite because I've sat here for months and months and months saying no, Havertz is not a midfielder. I'd be a hypocrite now if I made that case. So,
but you're right.
You're
right. You're right because of how he's performed in number 9. Okay, cool. So obviously there's no conversation about Ben Johnson on the right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, over England's best player, is it, for the last how many years now?
Yeah, I went on a bit of a. You might have seen this. I upset a lot of Arsenal fans. Not a lot, the ones I spoke to, because I just made a case that maybe Foden should be playing on the right during the Euros.
Flav.
But my point is, remember where I'm coming from, Harry, right? What's my job? My job is just to toe the party line, the Tottenham line, right? So if I can say something that might rattle or might, even if I don't, I know how good Saka is. I appreciate how good Saka is. But there was a conversation that you could potentially play Foden in his more comfortable position because last year he might have been the best player in Europe. That was all I was saying. It didn't go down well.
I think if there's one player in the Premier League that you could make that case for, it is Foden, to be fair to you. But I just think it's so obvious with Saka, everything that he brings, not just goals, not just assists, but the way he helps the team defensively, the way he gets back, the way he can go inside and outside nowadays, as well as taking his game to a whole new level.
Frustratingly good.
Yeah, he is. And you know what he gives Arsenal the ability to do as well, that I think unless you watch Arsenal every week, you might not notice as much, is he gives them the ability to go direct because he wins a scary number of aerial duels for someone of that size. And
do you know what else? If you're giving him credit, in the same way that I enjoyed Jack Wilshere's genuine disdain for Tottenham Hotspur, Saka's come through the group. He understands it. And we live in a world now where most of your players are brought in from Europe or elsewhere in the world, and they may say that they understand it. And they'll do their best to understand the culture around the game. But Saka knows it, right? And the one player, Arsenal player I do respect more than any other, probably the only one, would be Jack Wilshere, because he was just he understood it. He came in as like a fan, and Saka's close to that as well. So yeah, and I can't really genuinely make an argument for Brendan Johnson.
What about on the left-hand side? Because again, to me, I would normally go with Gabriel Martinelli because I suspect, and it is just my prediction, that Trossard will play as a false 9 at the weekend.
Okay. Which
means that opens that space for Martinelli or Raheem Sterling. I don't think Arteta would throw in Sterling for a first start, having not played this season yet.
That's frustratingly deep, that front line now, isn't it? Like, now that signing the Sterling, like, if you'd have said Reece Nelson, I'd be like, I'm not really bothered by that.
Well,
but
it's 6 players now. I was sitting down going through the squad yesterday. 6 players, 2 centre forwards and 4 wingers, which is kind of the perfect balance that you want, right?
Yeah, great.
So Martinelli on the left. For me, who are you going with on the left?
Well, of course, I'm going with Heung-min Son because, a Premier League icon, still scoring goals for Spurs, still effective. Martinelli just doesn't have the body of work to talk to Son. So I cannot give you Martinelli, but I'm not denying what a great player he is. And again, one you fear when you watch him play against Tottenham.
On current form, I'm not so big on including Martinelli because I don't think it's that the form's been there.
So what? Who can you give me? Son as well?
I'm giving you way too many.
Yeah,
listen. If this was my lineup, I'm not giving you any, not a single one. I'm trying to be fair here.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe I'm letting myself down a little bit. Maybe
I mean, I'm all for it, but look, I thought maybe that I'd have to fight for Kulusevski, but you've got these injuries. This is the problem. It changes everything. And if Havertz is in midfield, you're saying Trossard. I don't think Solanke's going to be available, so we don't have a number 9. Richarlison's not fit either, so it is whoever you choose. You could literally choose any one of your front line. You could play Sterling and have an argument for that. So it's definitely.
Well, I'm going to put Trossard there because I think maybe with the exception of Heung-min Son, who, as you say, has got that body of work, I think Trossard is the most cold-blooded finisher across the two teams.
What has he played that false 9 before?
He has in the past. He's done it a bit for Brighton. He did it a couple of times for Arsenal, not that often. But I remember asking Mikel Arteta about this during pre-season, and he talked about his ability to play there and how well him and Kai Havertz seem to combine with one another. So I wouldn't be surprised if at times in the game, if Arsenal play that way, if you didn't see Trossard sometimes drop into the deeper role, and if Arsenal want to go that bit more direct, Havertz just kind of swap in with him for a phase of play. I think that could happen.
Just having conversations with Mikel Arteta, just casually. How are you just casually having conversations?
It was an interview. It was a post-match interview. So nice. I don't normally get to. I don't have him on speed dial or anything.
All right.
So yeah. Okay. Let's go Trossard then.
Okay. I think I've done well there. I don't think there's many Arsenal fans that would give me that much.
Let's get onto the game then. I mean, who's it a bigger North London derby for? Because for you guys, the season's not started great, in my opinion. I know you mentioned the performances have been good. The results haven't been there. I still think that defensively, Spurs look as naive as they ever have under Ange Postecoglou. I still don't think you can defend set pieces for love nor money. I still think that there is, you're not going to like this, but there's an inferiority complex when it comes to Spurs against some of the bigger teams. I do think that exists. And so I don't know that based on what I've seen at the start of this season, Spurs have actually taken a step forward. I know it's early, but is it there to see? I can't see it.
Statistically, if you move, I get where you're coming from in terms of like you're going to naturally want to look for the sort of failings in what we're trying to do. But statistically, in terms of giving up key chances, I think like the XG against Spurs is only bettered by Nottingham Forest and Man City and Liverpool. So if you look, if you remove the eye test and look at the stats, it tells you a different story. However, there are groups of Spurs fans that were saying exactly the same thing as you just said, in that on the counter, in transition, we can be got at. Now, this is the way we play. And that inferiority, it's probably true that over the years, there has been an issue with how Spurs are placed in that big six. And we're roughly down the bottom of it, barring a couple of seasons where we've performed well and finished in second and third. But I think Ange Postecoglou is the outlier here in that he doesn't think like that. He doesn't operate like that. And he gets us playing in a way that you'll see on Sunday that he will show absolutely zero respect to Arsenal. Now, that might be our downfall. But he doesn't show respect to anybody. That's not to say he's disrespectful, but he's completely focused on the way he wants to play, and it doesn't change. And again, that might be the reason why his time at Tottenham, will be remembered less fondly than he would like, but he won't change. It's just the way he's played. And so I think that the way we set up against Arsenal, against Manchester City away from home, wherever it might be, some might say it is naive. It's us saying, we belong here, we're going to play like this. It doesn't matter what you try to do.
Would you not prefer to see just a bit more balance, though? Like, go into most games, 90% of games, and play the way that you want to play. But it must be incredibly frustrating turning up knowing that, you're going to get somebody drop a ball over the top and you're going to have a problem dealing with it. I was watching clips back of the Newcastle game last night ahead of some analysis that I'm doing. And the amount of times that Spurs would push up really aggressively, they'd have their back three on that it was because the player would go forward on their halfway line, and you'd have 4 Newcastle bodies. So often teams are not showing you respect back and saying, well, you can get all those men forward, but we're going to push you up to the halfway line and we'll catch you out. You must want to hit your head against the wall seeing the same thing over and over again.
Well, you've got to remember where we've come from, right? So that we've gone from a team that now operates around 65 to 70% possession in a game to having Conte and Mourinho are literally terrorists when it comes to attractive football, where we wouldn't have touched the ball for 5 minutes. So if you're asking me to take one or the other, then it's definitely this. However, there is at this stage evidently a lack of balance between our attacking and defensive play. But my rebuttal to that would be, look at where we were when he took over, where we are now, and where we'll be in a year. And if it means that he doesn't abandon his principles to get to where we need to go, if we get done on the break a couple of times, then let's just stick with it. He's not going to change anyway. So philosophically, you've just got used to it now. I'm nowhere near as nervous watching Spurs as I was 12 months ago. You're just comfortable with the fact that we're going to get done every now and then, unfortunately.
Flipping it back to Arsenal for a minute, and then we'll do some predictions.
Yeah.
I'm worried, Flav, that if Arsenal lose this game on Sunday, which would give you guys plenty of joy and would obviously hurt us, A, because it's a derby, but B, because we have to go to Manchester City the following weekend, Arsenal could end up 8 points behind City at this stage in the season. That would be... It's almost fatal, isn't it? Like, I'm not saying it's impossible to turn around, but to go 8 points behind them with their reputation, with the way they've done things over the last few years, it would be a real blow to Arsenal's title aspirations.
Yeah, it's not over because it's such a long season, and Man City will falter. You'd think, you hope, if you're an Arsenal fan. Is it? I guess you're asking the question: who's it mean more for? Who's it more? Definitely more at stake for Arsenal. You, as a fan, you always want to win this game regardless of the scenarios, and that's just a given. So it's almost pointless saying that, right? But yeah, Arsenal, given the fact they don't have Odegaard, and probably won't have him for City, you'd imagine. Look quite bad, that twist.
He'll be out a month, I reckon.
Yeah, 3 weeks. You never know. But there's a lot riding on this. And it's, as a fan base, where are you at? And you'll be able to answer this, I'd imagine, easily, is when the expectation is that you will win the league this season. Would you say it's a fair assessment for Arsenal fans that they thought legitimately they can win the league this season?
I think it's right to feel that you can, and it's right to expect that you challenge for it. But I've been saying from the start of the season that, to me, some of the talk around Arsenal is almost disrespectful to Manchester City, that have won 4 in a row, that could quite easily win 5 in a row, that have arguably the greatest manager of all time. Yeah. And I've not even mentioned the case that's looming over them as well, which, we don't know how that's going to go. I'm not sitting here saying guilty or not guilty, but the truth is that if they have been seen to have gained an advantage, has put them into a really good position that they've been able to build from. So they're coming from a position of strength. So to say Arsenal are definitely going to win it, I think is disrespectful to them.
There are people in the fan base, though, that after that game against, who did you win first game of the season?
Wolves
and then Villa, right? That they were like, there was conversations that where from outside you're going very early here, Arsenal fans. Yeah. My question here is, if you're 8 points behind, how will the fan base react to being in that position? Because will they be able to cope with knowing that they're chasing for the rest of the season? Cope's the wrong word, but will it impact how positive they are about their football club? Because, like I said earlier, you can tell there's a unity there. That you're all pulling in the same direction. At what point does what was previously a quite fragile fan base, the cracks start to show?
I think the vast majority will be fine, because the vast majority will understand that the fixture list hasn't helped us. And I'm not using that as an excuse, because there'll be points in the season where we have harder games or City have harder games than us.
I did look through it. It's pretty naughty, the start of your season. It's
it's horrible. It's horrible. It's awful. And then you factor in the injuries, which can't be helped. And then you factor in some of the other stuff. I think the problem that we have now is that we're so close to the end of a transfer window that a lot of Arsenal fans don't feel we did enough in. That will just kind of fuel the fire around the disappointment if Arsenal end up falling quite far behind City now. So most people will be fine, but there will be those dissenting voices. There always is. There always is. And it's always the ones that shout the loudest that seem to kind of come out, and people look at that and go, well, that's the general opinion. And often it's not.
It's the same at Spurs. Yeah. Exactly the same.
Predictions. Let's do it. How do you see it going?
I'm going to say 4-1 Spurs.
Flav.
No, what?
You are setting yourself up here. 4-1 Spurs.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Well, I'm going to go 4-1 Arsenal then. Let's do that.
We shall see. I think there's one that's probably more likely than the other, but I won't say which.
I just, for me, I look at Spurs and I think that even with the injuries, and I know I'm going to get killed for this come Monday if the result goes.
You can't be bold, Harry. What's the point?
Let's do it. What's the point? I just think that there are still some really clear vulnerabilities in this Tottenham side. And if Arteta gets his tactics right, and he's proven, I think, year after year that he's improving as a manager, that the team is better equipped to deal with different scenarios. I think if he plays this right, and by playing it right, I mean going over the top of Spurs rather than trying to play through them. I think if he goes over the top of them with Saka, Martinelli's pace in the wide areas, if Havertz can get into those forward positions and hold the ball up, then I think Arsenal can cause Spurs a lot of problems. Add set pieces into the equation, which we're really strong at. I would certainly say is a weakness of yours. I think there's lots of reason to be optimistic, even without Rice, even without Odegaard, even without Mikel Merino. So, yeah, I think Arsenal can win. And I think if Arsenal are clinical on the day, it could get ugly for Spurs.
You make some points.
But you don't like them.
You make some points. You make some points. There are ways to get at Spurs, and playing over the top is one of them. But turning over the ball in the opposition's half is what we are elite at. And statistics will show you that as well, Harry. It's a North London derby. Anything can happen. I'm confident in Tottenham because I should be. And you're the same with Arsenal. But yeah, it's still going to end up in a 4-1 drubbing.
Yep. Either way, we'll see on Monday. We'll be back on Monday, of course, to look back on this and either laugh at ourselves or be pretty smug. We'll see. We'll see how that comes around. Thank you for watching, of course. And we'll be back on Monday to see how it all went. I would wish you luck, Flav, but I wouldn't mean it. So I'm not going to do it.
No, you don't have to do it.
See you soon, though.
Cheers, mate.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.